Hi everyone, welcome back to Storytime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the film from 2020, Caveat. Without any further, let's get started. In the beginning of the movie, Olga, a young woman, is shown wandering around an old, abandoned house. She appears to be searching the house for something, and as soon as she enters a room, she starts pointing a creepy bunny doll at the basement, which sounds like a ghost detector. Following the bunny's lead, Olga descends the stairs and uses a small saw she found in the basement to make a hole in the wall. There, she witnesses a terrifying occurrence. In the following scene, the young woman's uncle Barrett appears seeking assistance from his longtime buddy Isaac. Isaac has amnesia from an accident, so he doesn't recall who Barrett was. Isaac listens as Barrett says that he needs someone to watch his niece, Olga, after her father committed suicide and her mother vanished. To cut the long story short, Isaac discovers that Olga's house is located on a little island in the midst of the lake when they arrive there. Despite the fact that Isaac cannot swim, Barrett continues to nag Isaac to go to the house, and after they arrive by boat, Isaac reluctantly accepts the job that will pay him $200 a day because he is currently struggling financially. We discover that the place is quite secluded and that it is the only house on the island as Isaac and Barrett, the uncle, arrive. Barrett says that Olga is afraid of being attacked and is psychologically disturbed, therefore she won't allow anyone into her bedroom, especially at night. In addition, Olga suffers from a disorder that occasionally renders her catatonic.
Can't leave you here with her if you won't put that on.
She remains motionless at this phase. Barrett shows Isaac a set of long chains with a harness, after which he is instructed to put it on. Barrett maintains that this is a necessary aspect of the work to ensure that Isaac doesn't go into Olga's room because the chain would allow him to access every area of the house except Olga's room. Clearly, Isaac thinks this is really strange and at first won't wear it, but since he needs the job, he gives in. After Uncle Barrett departs, Isaac explores the enormous home slowly and discovers that the chain originates in the basement. He tries to use the restroom, but is prevented from doing so by the length of the chains on his harness. He discovers a puppy in the yard as he continues to go around. He feeds the dog some food while sitting in front of it since he is bored, but he is unaware that the light behind him has abruptly turned off. When his chain gets pulled, he wanders through the corridor, confused. The intercom then begins to buzz, so he rushes to see whether Olga has called for him, but she is still in a catatonic state. He goes to bed at night, but something starts to move behind him. It's a terrible painting on the wall, and it terrifies him. He decides to flip it, but soon discovers that it's facing him again. This is so strange that he flips it again and sleeps facing it. Later on in that night, the sound of the painting falling to the floor wakes him asleep. Curious, he picks it up and discovers the woman's eyes are open, and he hears her whispering for him to approach. He can't sleep, so he starts looking around the house once more. This time, he opens a case and takes out a bunny toy. Suddenly, he hears several screams, and then Olga enters the room with a crossbow. She reassures him that it's just wild foxes that her father used to kill, so he shouldn't panic. The two then have their first conversation, during which Olga reveals that her father's suicide was caused by his claustrophobia. He shot himself with an arrow to end his life since he could not bear being imprisoned in the basement. Olga claims that during her father's lifetime, her insane mother put him in a harness, and when he begged for the key, the mother reportedly swallowed it. Following the practical joke, Olga's father committed himself after becoming stuck in the basement, and her mother vanished. Following the dark story, Isaac sits by himself in front of the bunny as Olga leaves the room. Nevertheless, it begins to drum. The bunny begins to beat out a loud drum while the cellar door opens behind it. Upon turning around, he notices the door is open and calls Olga to see if she's there. When he goes to look inside it, he notices light coming from the basement and descends. In the lower level, he discovers the source of his harness and a gap in the wall that Olga carved at the start of the film, which he can see through with a torch. He was shocked to see Olga's mother dead there with an arrow in her chest. Since he had previously seen Olga carrying a crossbow, he is convinced Olga is the murderer. He goes back upstairs to Olga's room, where he is fortunate to find her once more in a catatonic state. The only phone in the house is in Olga's room. He can't enter Olga's room because of the harness, but he gets sly and reaches for the phone via a tiny vent hole on the wall. He then gives Barrett, the uncle, a call to inform him about the mother's body and the possibility that Olga killed her and concealed her in the basement.
She's in the middle of one for a
Upon learning this, Isaac's uncle promises to take care of him. Out of dread, Isaac chooses to lock Olga in her room in the interim. Later, a confused Olga uses the intercom to ask why she's locked inside. As a result, Isaac acknowledges the corpse discovery and how he believes Olga was responsible. Olga insists that she did not kill the mother, father, or uncle, but he is intrigued by her story and goes to speak with her.
I have my doubts.
Olga reportedly discovered her mother's body and informed her uncle about it. Surprisingly, her uncle admitted right away that he had killed Olga's mother and father because of Olga's insanity. Olga also made the decision not to report the crime to the police because she did not want her father to be known as the man who killed his own wife. Furthermore, according to Uncle Barrett, Isaac had visited this house previously before the accident that caused him to lose his memory. After that, Uncle Barrett took Isaac to see his father in the basement, which ultimately led to suicide. This makes Isaac feel ashamed and makes him doubt his own abilities. He wants to report the dead body he discovered to the authorities, but for some reason Olga won't let him. Olga gives in, and they decide to phone Uncle Barrett together to find out whether it's true that Isaac was here earlier and confined the father in the basement. Isaac is shocked when Uncle Barrett verifies his identity. After that, the uncle calls Olga in secret and begs her to keep Isaac from leaving. Isaac is frightened by this and locks Olga in her room once more right once. He immediately tries to remove his harness, but when he is unable to do so, he tries to find another way out. Peeping through the vent hole, he discovers that Olga's room contains the key to his harness. But Olga breaks his fingers as he reaches for it. He withdraws to the dining room, realigning his bones in agony. When he goes to the basement, he finds that the key is still there after seeing images of the mother there and learning that she wears the harness key as a necklace. That is, Olga told a false story about the mother ingesting the key. Isaac succeeds in obtaining the extra harness key and makes his getaway. But all of a sudden, the lights go out, leaving Isaac to use a flashlight to navigate. He hears a terrifying scream coming from the basement at the same moment, but he continues on and makes his way back to the main floor, where he encounters Olga in her catatonic state once more. After that, he grabs her crossbow and fastens the harness. When he eventually gets to Olga's room and finds that the phone line has been cut, he conveniently starts to remember a conversation he had with Uncle Barrett back when the uncle had hired him to lock the dad in the basement. He sobs himself to sleep now that he's beginning to recall. His first act upon waking up is to freshen up in the restroom. Isaac closes the door to protect himself as Olga pulls the crossbow from the room and shoots him, missing the mark by just hitting his ear. After a while, when he cautiously emerges from hiding, he approaches the drawer and discovers Olga has disappeared. After Olga shoots him, impaling his leg with the crossbow bolt, Isaac flees to the restroom before the pain causes him to pass out. Returning to the flashback, Isaac was getting ready for Barrett's work when he last stopped by the house. Nobody seemed to be there. As Isaac picks up a black book and begins writing a note for Barrett's brother, the dad, he hears laughter coming from the basement and decides to look into it. He discovers the basement door locked, which is strange, so he unlocks it and goes down. As he looks into it more, he discovers the father covered in blood, which makes him flee in terror upon seeing the crossbow. After that, when Barrett pays him a visit and informs her that he has just finished planning her brother's funeral after discovering him dead in the basement, disoriented Barrett is informed by Isaac that her brother had been locked up in the basement when he arrived at the residence, raising the question of who did it. Being the shady guy that he is, Barrett brushes off the accusations and hands Isaac a large sum of money. Isaac declines, claiming the work was completed before he arrived, and Barrett walks off with the money. Barrett returns later that night, believing Isaac would confess his transgression. After sneaking into his flat, he pushed Isaac down the balcony, causing him have amnesia. Now let's go back to the present. Isaac wakes up in the bathroom and uses pliers to trim the arrow so he can move more easily. He finds a tiny door in the bathroom after putting on a few clothes to stay warm. He squeezes in and begins to worm his way out of there to escape Olga after discovering a secret path inside. When Isaac is not looking, the mother's spirit appears, and our careless protagonist eventually reaches the end of the hall, the area behind the wall where the mother's lifeless body lies, where the mother's ghost appears. Using a little saw he makes a larger hole through which he may escape. He sees for a while before realizing that the corpse of Olga's mother had relocated. He masks the mother's face with his winter hat since he feels uneasy around her. However, the next time he turns to face her, the monkey toy begins to beat, and Olga goes down the basement. She removes an arrow from her deceased mother just in time to see his Uncle Barrett. Then, he chastises Olga into obedience, stating that all along he has been a violent guy who has ruined Olga's family. Without cause for suspicion, Uncle Barrett notices that Isaac is visible through the wall hole. But before he can act, Olga shoots her uncle in the back and locks him up in the basement since she can no longer stand him. Uncle Barrett then persuades Isaac to come out and cooperate with him in order to confront Olga. Barrett, however, is actually about to bash Isaac's head in while holding a log. After noticing the saw in motion, Barrett hears Isaac talking over the upstairs intercom. As the atmosphere suddenly shifts to quiet, Barrett is surprised to discover that the person behind the wall is the mother's ghost, who has come to kill him. In the meantime, Isaac escapes through the chimney, releasing the dog in the process. When Olga finds him at the end of the film, she is still wearing her harness, and it is unclear what will happen to her after they exchange long looks. Thanks for watching, and remember to turn on your notifications to watch more movie recaps like this one.